AJ Politi was one of the best pitchers in the Red Sox farm system throughout the 2022 season, and we had the opportunity to speak with him on this episode of the Locked On Red Sox podcast.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I want to welcome you back into the Locked On Red Sox podcast, and thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I am Jake Ignaszewski, and today we have a very special guest in Red Sox prospect pitcher AJ Politi, who is one of the most effective arms out of the bullpen in the Red Sox farm system throughout the 2022 season. He split his time between Portland and Worcester and dominated during both trips. But we had the opportunity to speak with him, learn a little bit about what made him so effective throughout this past season, and also got to uncover what are some of his favorite hobbies outside of baseball. But let's get into our conversation with AJ Politi. I am here with Red Sox prospect pitcher AJ Politi. So how are we doing, AJ? How's your offseason going so far, man?
I'm good. It's been fun getting back into training and throwing and just getting ready for the next season.
So didn't you recently move as well? How's that been going?
Yeah, so I moved out to the West Coast for the off season, and can't complain with the weather. It's nice, I've been getting to throw outside every day, and it's just nice being outside and not stuck in the cold.
Yeah, I bet. Where'd you move from?
So I'm from New Jersey, was living in Rhode Island, and then we moved to San Diego.
Oh, can't complain whatsoever. I'm actually going out to San Diego for the winter meetings next week, so I'm very excited for that. I'm in New Hampshire. We don't have snow yet, but it's 30 degrees outside. I haven't stepped outside once today. I'm one of those people who, if I ski, so if there's no snow on the ground, then it doesn't make any sense for it to be cold outside.
It was nice in Rhode Island before I left. It was like 75, so I got out in the right time.
Yeah, 100%. It must make it so much easier for you to be able to, obviously, like you mentioned, already thrown out there, already getting some work in. And so during these past other off seasons, have you had to go into, turfed or inside areas to get work in?
Yeah, majority of my throws were to a net inside and turf. So it's a completely new thing, just like getting to throw the cleats on every day, having that field being outside and really playing catch with a partner, which makes a huge difference as opposed to throwing into a net where you don't get as much feedback, I feel like.
Right. And so especially, last season, let's say you didn't get to throw outside, I'm guessing, until you went down to Fort Myers for spring training.
Correct. Yeah.
Geez, that I hope you're able to feel a massive difference during this next season. I would think so. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially being able to be outside. A little bit about me. I played up until high school baseball, so I get it a little bit. I had to train inside all throughout my time playing the game, and it was really tough. I was an infielder, so getting those balls off of the turf, flying up, and then obviously once you get outside and it hits the dirt, it's a completely different ball game.
It's more of a gauge for your off-season throwing program. So like inside, you can get the mound work in. You can kind of measure out, but it's like, if you have 150 feet to throw that day, like how can you really gauge that when you're throwing into the net? Like what kind of effort are you putting in? It's like here, you have your partner at 150 feet and you can really see the throws that you're making.
That's awesome. And have you found a catcher out there that you're able to throw with yet?
Yeah, so I've found a little facility out here. We got a few pro guys. We got a couple Red Sox guys in there
That's cool.
that just got drafted. I just met them. Obviously, I've been through the system a little bit longer. I just met them. We got a few big leaguers. It's good. It's always good to find a place where it fits your environment and you have players there that can push you and you can work with and bounce ideas off of. So it's been good.
I bet with the younger guys, it must be sort of like a blast from the past, sort of putting yourself in their perspective, them walking into, maybe their first off season in pro ball. Have you tried to, give some of the pointers that you've learned over your years?
So a few of the young guys I've only met a few times, just being new here. I know there's a catcher in the Red Sox system that that catches there. I haven't had a chance to meet him. I know he's been doing stuff with the Red Sox, maybe instructs or something, but he hasn't been in. I think his last name's McElveny. I don't know if you've heard that name.
No, I haven't.
I think he was recently drafted.
Okay.
And then another kid, Marquise, I think he was recently drafted out of here. So yeah, I haven't really gotten to talk to him much, but
Makes
it's
sense.
kind of funny just like listening to like the old stories of like back in low A and kind of just getting adjusted back into pro ball. It's like when you're at two different spots in your career, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, exactly. I bet. And you spent time between, Portland and Worcester throughout this past season. And I'm curious how you would really assess your performance in 2022.
Uh, I mean, I think for the most part, like when you look at the numbers, obviously it's really good, but I think it was just I think like outside of looking in the numbers, it was just a big jump, like in mentality and kind of attacking hitters and kind of just learning more about my stuff and how to use my stuff. So like
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the biggest success outside of, what the numbers show. It's just like learning how to use my stuff and how to attack hitters and how to get like really good hitters out and how to just like not just go in there trying to blow balls by guys and
Mm-hmm.
really learning how to pitch and use your mix and kind of that stuff. So I think that was the big success this year is really honing in my three pitches and learning how to use them in different counts and stuff like that.
That makes sense. And when you, as you mentioned, when you look at the numbers, they look really good. And to give you a little bit of an insight, we posted 5 days a week all throughout the off season or all throughout the season. And, especially going into September, I worked for the Woo Sox for a little bit and I was able to see you on a daily basis, at least during home games. And, I was preaching on this podcast, where's AJ Politi in the September calls? But I know you go out there, you just try to be even keel and just do your stuff. And, you don't worry about all that sort of stuff. That's for the decision makers. But reflecting on your season and thinking about, the goals that you went into 2022 with, do you think that you were able to achieve most of the goals that you went into the season with?
Yeah, I mean, when you kind of have like the rough season I had the year before, like learning how to be a starter and then kind of going back into a different role, it's kind of gets a little tricky. My whole career I've been flipping back and forth, and so kind of being able to establish where I belong and where I
Mhm.
feel most comfortable and like around that kind of stuff. It's just like that's kind of was a huge goal of mine, and I think that's kind of a spot where I found where I belong, and I think I put in a lot of work last off season, so I was excited to see like the numbers show for it.
And you mentioned, the back and forth from being a reliever and a starter. And, one thing that a lot of people don't think about is, obviously with starters it's every 5 days and you're able to have that warm up progression. But as a bullpen pitcher, you don't really know when you're coming in. And, one guy that I always think of when, players bring that up is Zach Kelly. He mentioned, that warm up is something that he had to adjust to. So talk a little bit about, maybe last offseason, knowing that you were probably going to go from a starter to a reliever, how did you sort of mentally and also physically try and get into a routine to warm up as fast as possible as a reliever?
I mean, for me, it wasn't a big adjustment just
Okay.
because I was more of a reliever my whole life. So
Okay.
it was more of like the off season going into being a starter where it was like, oh, I got to change everything. So it's like it was kind of more of the adjusting back to it wasn't anything crazy for me. Like that's kind
Mhm.
of how I've been pitching my whole life is out of the pen. So it wasn't that part of it wasn't really that hard for me. It was just kind of because that's how I like to pitch. It's like I'm a guy that likes to be ready every single day. I like to put in the work to be ready every day. So it's like I think that's just where I belong. So it's really finding that getting back to it wasn't that difficult for me. Um,
Makes sense.
so it was more on the other side of like being a starter where going into that season, it was like, okay, I got to change everything, um, figure out how to do this. Like, how do I throw my bullpen on
Hmm.
after the second day after I just threw 100 pitches? That was more of the difficult side of me, but like flipping
Makes sense.
back to the reliever was just kind of natural to me because I've been doing it my whole life.
And take us through your sort of like warm up routine going into, when they say, AJ, we need you to start getting ready to get into the game. Take us into sort of that warm up. Obviously, you can say, I do 10 throws or whatever, but like sort of once you hear your name, what happens?
Um, so kind of like, you kind of have an idea of where you can kind of be called into the game. But I think majority of for me, my work is done pregame.
Okay.
So that when my name is called, it's kind of just like, okay, I'm ready to go. So it's like once your name's called, your adrenaline starts pumping a little bit.
Mhm.
You kind of get warmed up pretty quick. Maybe those first few months when it's 30 degrees, it's a little tougher, but once it gets warmer out, you kind of just have to have that mindset to be ready at any second. So it's like you don't really think about it. You kind of just hop on the mound, work your fastball, get your fastball ready, and then get a couple breaking balls in. But it's more of just get the arm loose and then just be ready to go in the game. I think majority of the work comes before the game, so working on pitches and working on your curveball, your fastball, that comes in the pregame work.
And so no sunbathing like Tristan Cassis?
No, not for me.
I'm playing. I hope that you are enjoying my conversation with AJ Politi, but I just want to take a second to talk to you about betonline.net, which is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get your latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. We've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We are always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. So head over to the website or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now let's get back into my conversation with AJ. But throughout your time in Worcester, it was really cool to see you not only progress from what you were able to do in Portland, then going to the next level and still being able to have success. And so once you got to the Woo Sox bullpen, was there anybody that sort of took you under their wing when you first got called up?
I wouldn't say took me under their wing, but I think you can learn a lot from some of those guys in the bullpen. Just you have a lot of time in the bullpen every day, sitting with the same group of guys. But of course, a bunch of them big leaguers. Some older guys, some guys that have experience. So I wouldn't necessarily say I was under anyone's wing, but I would say that just those bullpen talks. You can learn a lot about the next level. You can learn a lot about hitters, attacking hitters. A lot of guys bounce off ideas from each other. So it's like you can learn a lot in that bullpen with especially the higher levels when you have the guys like that who've been in the big leagues, have seen it, that know what it takes to get to the next level. So it's more of just bouncing ideas and learning from the next guy.
Makes sense. And those bullpen talks, obviously, keep those out of yourself. But is it always baseball stuff, or is there some unique stuff out of nowhere?
No, I would say 10% baseball stuff.
Okay, we'll keep it at that. But another really cool thing that you were able to be a part of this past year in Worcester is that the combined no hitter. So sort of take me through that game when you knew that you were going to be in, sort of your reaction, all of it.
It's gonna be kind of tough to tell because I didn't even know a no hitter was going on. At all, like zero clue.
I got to be honest, I was at that game and I had no clue until the ninth inning.
It's kind of like you have a rehab guy going. It's kind of like, okay, he's gonna go through his 4 innings. He's gonna be taken out. Next pitcher. So then it's like, I'm in the game. I think I obviously, yeah, you were at the game. I struggled heavily. It was probably one of my worst games. I know I didn't let up a hit or anything, but I think I walked the first 3 guys and then got out of it. But I was so frustrated on how I was pitching that I didn't even realize a no hitter was going in until probably the last out so I threw my 2 innings. So I had the bad first inning. I went out again. I had a clean inning, and then I kind of went inside and I was just pissed off at myself for how I pitched. And then I think, so Chase is pitching and there's probably 2 outs left. I'm sitting in the video room with the starting pitchers who are charted. And I think it was Murphy that was sitting there. And he's like, you got to go outside? And I'm like, dude, why would I go outside? He's like, dude, you should go outside. And I'm like, dude, I'm not going to go outside. Like when a reliever's done, you come in, you do your shoulder work, you do what you got to do. And then your day's over. He's like, dude, go outside. And I'm like, dude, I'm not going outside. Like it's just not gonna happen. Like I'm in here, my jersey's off, my cleats are off, like I'm staying in here. He's like, all right, dude. And I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm like, what? And then he's like, then he kind of like, he's like, just think about it. And then I was kind of like thinking, and I was like, oh shit,
We haven't allowed
you know?
ahead.
Yeah. And then, yeah, like right as it happened, the last hit, Granny made the diving catch, and then it was too late to go outside. But yeah, it was kind of funny. Like I didn't even realize.
That's awesome. Yeah, and especially that diving play. What a perfect way to end it.
Yeah. No, yeah, it was funny though, because of like how mad I was. And then that happened. I'm like, you know what, I can't really be mad about the performance now. Like that would be kind of, I don't want to be that guy that's in the corner pouting after he just contributed to a no-hitter. So it's like, it made the day a lot better.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to like talk to Wacha like right after his start, and then I was waiting to go into the clubhouse to talk to some guys right after the game, and then Wacha came through sort of like that hallway area, and he goes, "Never experienced anything like that. That's pretty crazy." He's like,
Yeah.
I can't believe I get an opportunity down here and thinking of nothing of it, and then part of something like that.
Yeah. No, it was awesome.
And then
Definitely,
especially my bad.
oh no, just gonna say it definitely changed the mood of the day for me.
And being able to be around guys like Michael Wacha and Nathan Eovaldi, Wacha once and then Eovaldi, I believe, was there twice. How was it being able to learn some things from them and pick their brain from what they've learned through their career so far?
Yeah, no, Waka is like one of the coolest dudes that has come through that locker room. Um, I remember after those 2 innings, because I didn't even realize why he was still hanging around. I was like, why is he still here? He threw his 4 innings. Like, needless to say, he's still hanging out in the locker room trying to wait this game out to see what happens. I remember him. I remember how pissed off I was sitting there, and he kind of came up to me, like, Michael Wacha, this veteran, very great career. And he came up to me and he kind of gave me some words, and he's like, "Oh, how'd you feel out there?" And I was like, "Nah, couldn't really figure it out." And, I remember him just kind of like taking his time and like talking to me and really like explaining like, "Oh, those days are going to happen. It's like those days that you kind of got to figure it out and just get through it." And he's like, "How many runs did you let in?" And I was like, "None." He's like, "Okay, so what's the big problem?" I was like, "Yeah, no, it's just like, but it's like stuff like that where he there's no reason for him to pick me up like a
Right.
AAA player, but like, he took his time after starting a game and to pick me up and kind of talk to me. And I was like, that's kind of like, it's hard to see that from established big leaguers like that. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's just really cool when players come down and they really talk to players, they get to know them, and just things like that. It's awesome.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've asked a few other guys, mainly position players, about like Trevor Story going down or Kike or something like that. And it really seems like it's the same exact sort of message of these guys are taking the time and they don't have to. And I think that just shows sort of who they are as people off the field. And that's something I mentioned to you at the start of this conversation. I bet they're thinking of themselves, like the younger selves, as I would want somebody to come up to me and give me some tips or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the one thing I've noticed about going through the system and having the Red Sox teams all on the East Coast and close, since 2018, you've had a bunch of big leaguers come through that locker room and rehab. And I think one thing the Red Sox do is they create a very good culture at the big league level. So
Mm-hmm.
you kind of see the types of players they get and the type of clubhouse they have, that any player that walks through that's rehabbing, and you're getting the same respect from all of them, and they all treat you the same. And I think that's just one thing about the Red Sox, is the culture that they've created and the players that they get. And you could see it when they come in rehab. They're all the same. They're all the nicest people. They're all established big leaguers that really don't owe us anything. And they really take their time out to get to know us, to help us, to pick our brains. So it's really cool to see that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And one thing Christian Arroyo said, he was on Chris Cotillo's show, the Fenway Rundown, and he said that like guys like Rich Hill, Michael Wacha, and even some of the guys from like the deadline just going into that clubhouse fit in seamlessly. And even Christian Arroyo, he was somebody who went down in Worcester for a week or so, and he was one of the nicest guys, like super down to earth personality. And I just think that really shows that the Red Sox front office puts a lot of thought into the guys that they bring in, not only with what they do on the field, but also within the locker room.
Yeah, it's really cool to see. I mean, Sales and other guys. I mean, future Hall of Famer, one of the most established pitchers, and
Yeah,
you don't even know what team he's on when he's there, just because he acts like one of the players. It's really cool to see, and it just makes the environment so much better. And it makes playing so much more fun when you have guys like that come and
very true.
act like one of the players. It's cool.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And that actually made me think: is there anybody who plays right now? Doesn't have to be for the Red Sox, can really be for any team. Also, could be any minor league team that you look at and try and not emulate your game off of, but you sort of look up to in some sort of way.
Um, I wouldn't say there's too many players that I truly like really look up to or emulate, but I like to watch a lot of different pitchers. I like to watch a lot of established big leaguers and just kind of see what they do. And I like to see like kind of, I think the spring training part of being together is really cool because you could see what the big leaguers do day in and
Hmm.
day out to get their bodies ready to get ready. But I mean, there's a bunch of pitchers now that you can watch that are just elite pitchers that you can really learn a lot from just watching the games and seeing how they pitch. But I wouldn't say there's one pitcher that I truly just like look up to. I've always been a fan of Verlander. Like he's always been at the top of my list of
Yeah.
favorite pitchers.
I don't I said it on an episode that we did like 2 or 3 days ago. I'm like, I don't know what is up with Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, but they had to have been taking the TB12 method or something like that. Being able to be that effective at 40 years old, that's unheard of.
I mean, yeah, I think Verlander is one of the best to ever do it, just for what he's doing at his age. And I think the crazy thing is you see a lot of pitchers, I think Greinke's a huge example is that, he's a guy that was throwing 100 and he really had to change his game to kind of fit the mold of baseball to keep getting outs because, he's not a guy that was throwing 100 anymore.
Hmm.
But then you get Justin Verlander and he's in his whatever age season and he's still the same power pitcher he was
Yeah.
from the day one. And I think to me, that's just goes to show the work ethic that he puts in just to be that age and throwing 100 miles an hour and winning a Cy Young and not really having to change who he is just because he's still a power pitcher. And I think that's one of the most amazing things in baseball that gets kind of overlooked.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't know if you heard what Kate Upton said during, I think it was after the Astros won the World Series, but she's like, what can I say? He's an effing legend.
Literally, I think, yeah, I put him at the top of my list any day.
Yeah, I completely agree. But something that I think you'd find kind of cool is we had on so for the Locked On Podcast Network, they have an MLB prospects show, and their host, his name is Lindsey Crosby. He actually classified your curveball as the best in the system, and so that made me think. Talk about sort of your evolution of that specific pitch and how it's really progressed over the years.
Yeah, so the curveball is actually a funny story. So I never had a curveball, and I think it was 2018 or 2019 when I was in high A, my first full season. I had a good fastball, a good slider. I was still kind of getting better mechanically. I wasn't a finished product by any means. And I remember sitting in the outfield, and we had a guy, I don't know if you know, Brian Bannister,
Mm-hmm.
um, very high profile pitching guru. Literally, he's the most knowledgeable guy when it comes to analytics, pitch development. I mean, he's written all the stuff. He's evolutionized it. And luckily enough, the Red Sox had him in the system when he worked there. And I remember shagging during VP, and this guy, before I even knew who he was in town. I think we were playing the Astros high A team in Fayetteville. And he comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, do you ever grip a ball like this and throw it?" And I'm like, no, why? He's like, you kind of have the same uh, hand profile as a few guys. I think he mentioned like Verlander and maybe Matt Barnes. I want to say kind of the same. And he's like, this grip kind of works for them. They throw very good hard curveballs. Just try it. I was like, didn't know who this guy was. To be honest with you at the time. And he's like, just try it. And I was like, okay. And then he kind of walked away. And I didn't know what to do. I was like, just holding the ball in my hand. I'm like, okay. So then I think the next day, Lance Carter, our pitching coach, was like, all right, let's try a few. So I throw it. It was like pretty good. Throw it again. It's pretty good. He's like, all right, just keep it in your back pocket. We'll keep working on it. I remember the 2019 season goes on, and I keep throwing in bullpens, keep throwing in bullpens, keep throwing in bullpens. And I think a game comes, I'm fastball slider, nothing's working. And then I'm pretty sure Lance told me, he's like, just try the curveball. I'm like, okay. Throw one. Kid rips the ball off my shins. I'm like, oh, here we go. But had good shape, had good everything, and I was like, all right, maybe this doesn't work. But I remember him hitting a line drive just right off my shin, and I'm like, oh my god. But I kept working on it, I kept throwing it, and it just became a very good pitch later on the season, and I was just striking everyone out with it. It was hard, it was late, and I remember that time I had fastball, slider, curveball now because everyone's like, oh, where did this pitch come from? And that's kind of when I switched to that starter role at the end of 2019, and then I went like 5 games. 2 of the games I didn't give up a hit, and then that's kind of how I became a starter the following year. But that's kind of how the curveball came about, and then I became fastball curveball pitcher. So yeah, it was kind of just that 2019 season. I just kind of picked it up along the way. It was late. It was
That's
late in the
crazy.
season. Yeah.
And
And then
and now people are classifying it as the best curveball in the system. That's pretty cool.
yeah, it just kept getting better and better. And then 29 or 2021, I kind of lost it a little bit, and then this year I kind of made a little tweak to it, and I kind of got it back to where it was. So then yeah, it kind of just came back.
That's
But it's good
awesome.
to finally get people to notice it because it happened so late, and then COVID happened, and then I struggled that year as a starter, so it's like no one really noticed it, and
Mhm.
it was good that this year, like, it was kind of people started to realize the pitches I had.
Makes sense. And when you got that tweak in 2021 or 2022, you're like, "Ooh, we're back."
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. But I wanna start getting into some non-baseball questions or sort of baseball questions, but learn a little bit more about you. That's one thing that I tried doing the show. Talk a little bit about your on-field stuff, but also off-field stuff, so fans can learn about more about AJ Politi off the field. So,
Of course.
not non-baseball stuff. What has been some of your favorite moments so far this offseason that you've done?
Um, I would say a memorable one is driving across the country. I'll put
Oh,
that
I
as
didn't
one.
realize that you drove. Whoa, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, yeah. It wasn't fun. I wouldn't classify that as fun, but it was definitely, a checklist thing that I can say I've done. Um, I got to put that in there. I think just being in San Diego, it's been awesome. It's just a different vibe out here. It's a different feel, and I've been having a lot of fun. It's just nice being outside all the time. It's nice living at the beach. It's nice going into the ocean. Um, it's kind of just what I do most days. So I haven't had anything kind of crazy happen or memorable, but I think just living in San Diego is definitely pretty memorable. It just, it feels like you're on vacation now all the time,
Right.
just coming from the East Coast in the winter.
That's awesome. What funny enough, I've never told this on a podcast before, but my parents back in the early 90s, my mom lived in Massachusetts, my dad lived in California. My mom drove cross country in the early 90s, like barely any cell phones, barely nothing.
Yeah.
And it's now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like much easier to do it now than back in the early 90s.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a long trip.
That's for sure. But now that you're in San Diego, are you gonna start trying to take up surfing?
I don't know. I think I really want to try. I've
Yeah.
been in the water every day, but we'll see. I should while I'm here.
How about volleyball?
Haven't, but I was thinking pickleball might be my next
Ooh.
adventure.
There you
Yeah.
go.
So the
And then
gym
out of
I'm at is like,
nowhere, we'll see a notification. AJ Politi starts a pickleball franchise and the new league or whatever. Tom Brady's got one. Drew Brees has one.
yeah, my gym is actually at a tennis facility. So I kind of when I ride my bike to the gym in the morning and I kind of just see everyone playing pickleball and I'm like, "Ah, I got to get into this."
Definitely got to try that. Damn, that's
Yeah.
awesome. And so you mentioned biking. Now what are some other things that are some of your favorite hobbies outside of the game?
Um, Not many hobbies. Kind of a boring guy. Um, mornings kind of taken up by training, throwing. Then, I usually like to go to a coffee shop, grab a coffee, sit on the beach, go for a swim. Yeah, that's most of my days. I mean, we've spent most of our weekends just exploring San Diego, going to different parts. But yeah, there's not many hobbies that I have outside of baseball.
I'm a big coffee guy myself, and now since you brought up coffee, obviously since I'm still in the New England area, I would get killed if I didn't ask this. When you were still in New England or Rhode Island, or were you a Dunks guy?
Never, no chains. I'm a huge coffee snob, so no chains, no Starbucks, none of that.
I love it. That's so funny. So I worked at Dunkin' Donuts for 7 years, like from high school throughout college and all that sort of stuff. Help me
Yeah.
fund myself essentially. But I don't really get coffee from there really at all. I'm a coffee shop type of guy as well. But we had a few fans ask some questions as well. Atlas Baseball said favorite player growing up.
Ooh, favorite player growing up. All right, so big Mets fan growing up.
Okay.
So you had the guys like, you had David Wright, Pedro, Billy Wagner was
Mm-hmm.
a huge fan. And then I was a big fan of like a lot of funky pitchers. I mean, I was a big Dontrelle Willis fan, low key.
Ooh, yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah, huge. I was a huge fan of just like funky pitchers that I just would have fun trying to like imitate while I was like
Mm-hmm.
playing catch and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it was always like Pedro, Verlander. Obviously, always loved David Wright just because of the Mets. Um, yeah, those are just. But and then Billy Wagner, obviously, just because I fell in love with the hard fastball. So,
Do you think he should be a Hall of Famer?
uh,
Because I looked
I
at his
think
stats. I
so.
had an argument with one of my friends. I'm like, I think he deserves it. I mean, he's up there.
Just cause I was a Mets fan, huge fan. So yeah, I'm gonna have to go with yeah.
Okay, awesome. And also like you already answered the Mets fan question. Somebody asked what was your favorite team growing up, but now looking towards 2022, what are some of your main goals? Or
Uh,
2023? I don't know why I'm still back in 2022.
I think the only goal left is really just getting to that next step and just being a big leaguer and
Mhm.
just proving what I can do and just seeing if my stuff plays at the next level. And I think it does. And I'm excited to get an opportunity and hopefully I do get an opportunity. And yeah, that's kind of that's my main goal right now.
Yeah, I definitely see you getting that opportunity. As I mentioned, I was one of those big beaters for Politi in the Red Sox bullpen at the end of 2022. But I definitely see you getting there in 2023. But one thing I did want to mention, sort of something that I know is in the back of your mind, might not want to think about exactly, but since there is a tiny bit of a possibility that you could not be with the Red Sox organization if another team takes you in the Rule 5 draft, is there any message that you have, for Red Sox Nation since you've essentially been with them throughout majority of your career?
I mean, I loved every part about being with the Red Sox. And I think the coolest thing is I remember in summer ball, I was playing in New Hampshire and my host family took me to a Red Sox game, my first Red Sox game. And I remember sitting at Fenway, I was like, this is the place to play. Like this is the dream. Like if I'm gonna play professional baseball, like this is the park I want to play in every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just kind of cool being drafted by the Red Sox and then just knowing like that could be a possibility just because there's no place like Fenway. But yeah, I mean, the ultimate goal is getting to the big leagues, but I've loved every part of being with the Red Sox. I think it's a first class organization that's really pours a lot of money into the minor league players and really helps every player out. And it's been like a family there. I mean, all the trainers there, all the head guys. It's like I feel like I've just been with them for every day for the past 4 years. So it would be tough to leave it, and I wouldn't want to leave it just because I mean Fenway is where I want to play. But
Mm-hmm.
in the end, the ultimate goal is to be a big leaguer, and who knows, maybe one day I can get to be playing at Fenway.
I hope that you can make that happen in 2023, and I hope that even once we flip pages into 2023, I hope you're still a part of the organization. But really appreciate you taking the time today, AJ, and obviously wish you all the luck.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I hope that you did enjoy my conversation with AJ Politi, and I want to thank you so much for tuning in and for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. Now make your second listen and check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today. It's available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. And we want to thank you so much for supporting Locked On Red Sox throughout this offseason. We're going to be continuing to bring you great content throughout the rest of this offseason and going into 2023. Not only bring you interviews like these with prospects, former players, reporters. We're going to continue to also update you everything that's going on during free agency and also the trade market regarding the Boston Red Sox. So if you have not yet, make sure to subscribe over on YouTube or on wherever you listen to your podcast. But also make sure to follow us over on Twitter. It's LO_Red Sox. You can also follow myself. It's at Jake Iggy. And also my co-host Lauren. It's La 3 Laws. Lauren with 4 R's. But we hope everybody has a great and relaxing weekend. We will talk to you next week. But we'll end it how we always end it. Let's go Sox. Peace.